Ladies and gentlemen, hear me today. When God places his hand on a woman, there is no power in hell, no scheme of man, and no storm of life that can strip away her favor. A woman wrapped in divine favor doesn't walk like everyone else, doesn't talk like everyone else, and surely doesn't live like everyone else. She is marked, chosen, and lifted, not because of who she is, but because of whose she is. Now, let's talk about the 10 signs she's God's favorite woman. What happens when God's favor rests on a woman? What happens when heaven decides to put its stamp of approval on her life? Let me tell you, fear loses its power. Doubt loses its grip. Insecurity bows its head. Because when God marks you, nothing can stop you from walking in the authority he has given. Favor is not just a feeling. It is a force. It is not just something you hope for. It is something that follows you. And when a woman is favored, she doesn't live intimidated by fear. She lives elevated by faith. Think about it. Fear will always whisper. Fear will always try to show up at your door, knock at your spirit, and tell you that you are not enough. Fear will try to convince you that the battle is too big, that the mountain is too high, that the storm is too strong. But when favor steps in, fear has no seat at the table. Favor says you are chosen. Favor says you are covered. Favor says if God is for you, who can be against you? Now listen carefully. Fear is loud, but favor is louder. Fear shouts you can't. Favor whispers, with God you can. Fear declares you're not qualified. Favor responds, I called you. Fear warns you will fail. Favor counters, victory is already written. And the one who is God's favorite knows this truth deep in her bones, that the presence of God's favor is greater than the presence of fear. Do you see it? Fear is natural, but favor is supernatural. Fear limits, but favor liberates. Fear paralyzes, but favor empowers. Fear says, stay where you are. Favor says, step out and walk. Fear says, play small. Favor says, you are more than a conqueror. When God's hand is on a woman, she doesn't measure her life by the size of her fear. She measures it by the size of her God. And her God is bigger than every threat, stronger than every battle, greater than every enemy, and higher than every obstacle. That's why favor is not about circumstances, it's about covering. Even in the valley, she is favored. Even in the storm, she is favored. Even when she's underestimated, she is favored. Even when doors close, she is favored. Favor is not something that fades when life gets hard. Favor shines brightest when life gets darkest. The favored woman doesn't deny the reality of fear. She simply refuses to surrender to it. She feels it, but she doesn't bow to it. She hears it, but she doesn't believe it. She sees it, but she doesn't stop walking. And let me press this into your heart. Favor is not earned. Favor is given. You don't work for it, you walk in it. You don't strive for it, you stand in it. You don't beg for it, you believe in it. When God calls you his favorite, fear has no legal right to occupy your spirit. You are shielded. You are chosen. You are set apart. And every time fear tries to step in, favor pushes it back. Every time fear tries to chain you, favor breaks the lock. Every time fear tries to silence you, favor gives you a voice. What would happen if you lived as if you really believed you were favored? What would change in your choices if you stopped bowing to fear? What new doors would you walk through if you knew you couldn't lose? What battles would you face differently if you understood that God's favor guarantees his presence with you? Because when favor rests on your life, fear is only an illusion, a shadow, a lie without substance. Favor is the truth that overrides the lie. Favor is the light that destroys the shadow. Favor is the promise that declares no matter what comes against you, you are not standing alone. What do you do when the winds rise and the waves start crashing? What do you do when the storm won't stop raging? When the sky grows dark, when the people around you lose their ground? The favored woman does not collapse under the storm. She finds her strength in the middle of it. She discovers that the storm was never meant to destroy her, but to reveal her. She learns that storms don't come to take her out, they come to show her what God placed within. Storms have a way of exposing what you're made of. Anybody can praise when the sun is shining, but who can worship when the thunder is roaring? Anybody can smile when everything is going right, but who can smile when the world is against you? Anybody can believe when the path is clear, but who can believe when the ground is shaking under their feet? That's where strength is revealed. That's where true favor shows itself. Because strength isn't proven in the calm, it's proven in the chaos. And here's the truth, storms will come. Nobody escapes them. Storms of loss, storms of betrayal, storms of disappointment, storms of sickness, storms of confusion. They come uninvited, they come unexpected, they come unrelenting. But the favored woman knows this. Storms are temporary, but her strength is eternal. Storms may shake the outside, but they cannot break the inside. The wind may howl, but it cannot uproot what God has planted. The rain may fall, but it cannot flood what God has built. The storm may rage, but it cannot silence the voice of the one who knows where her strength comes from. Storms don't prove how weak you are. Storms prove how strong your God is. Every time lightning flashes, it reminds her that light still breaks through the darkness. Every time thunder rolls, it reminds her that heaven is louder than the storm. Every time the rain pours, it reminds her that even in the storm, God is watering seeds inside of her that will grow when the storm is over. Strength in the storm is not about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's not about denying the pain or ignoring the fear. No, strength in the storm is about standing when everything else is falling. It's about believing when everything else is doubting. It's about holding on when everything else is letting go. That's the kind of strength that storms cannot steal. That's the kind of strength that makes others look at her and wonder, how is she still standing? How is she still smiling? How is she still walking? And the answer is simple, because she's not standing in her own strength, she's standing in God's. Let me ask you, have you noticed that storms don't just test you, they transform you? The woman who enters the storm is not the same as the woman who walks out. She goes in weak but comes out stronger. She goes in uncertain but comes out unshakable. She goes in wounded but comes out wiser. Storms are classrooms, and the favored woman knows how to graduate with honor. When the storm hits, she doesn't panic, she prays. When the storm shakes, she doesn't run, she roots herself deeper. When the storm screams, she doesn't lose her voice, she raises it higher. Because storms don't silence the favored, they amplify her testimony. Storms don't bury her faith, they birth her faith. Storms don't block her destiny, they build it. What looks like a breakdown to others becomes a breakthrough for her. What looks like an ending to others becomes a new beginning for her. What looks like destruction to others becomes construction in her life. The storm is not the end, it is the stage for her strength to shine. What do you do when life feels like it's falling apart? What do you do when the noise is too loud, when confusion surrounds you, when chaos breaks loose on every side? Most people panic, most people fold, most people lose themselves in the storm. But the favored woman carries something the world cannot explain and the enemy cannot steal. She carries peace that overpowers chaos. Peace is not the absence of trouble, peace is the presence of God in the middle of trouble. Peace is not silence in the world around you. Peace is silence in your spirit when the world is loud. Anybody can rest when life is easy, but true peace shows up when everything is in disorder. That is why the woman favored by God does not let chaos define her. She lets peace guide her. Chaos will always try to enter. Chaos will show up through conflict, through stress, through unexpected problems, through people who try to pull you in every direction. Chaos comes like a storm, but peace is like an anchor. Chaos says you won't make it. Peace says you're already held. Chaos says you are surrounded. Peace says I am with you always. Chaos tries to distract, but peace restores focus. Chaos tries to break, but peace rebuilds. Chaos tries to confuse, but peace clarifies. Now hear me. Peace is not passive. Peace is powerful. Peace is not weakness. Peace is warfare. Do you know why? Because the enemy can handle your shouting, he can handle your crying, but he cannot handle your peace. Because when you are calm in the middle of the storm, it means you trust in a strength greater than yourself. It means the enemy has lost control. It means the chaos did not succeed in pulling you out of alignment with God. That's why peace is a weapon. That's why peace is proof of favor. Look at her life. While others are breaking under the pressure, she is still steady. While others are consumed by anxiety, she is still anchored. While others are carried away by every wave, she stands on solid ground. It is not because she is stronger than everyone else. It is because she knows where her peace comes from. She knows that peace is not created by circumstances. Peace is created by connection. And her connection is to the one who calms seas, still storms, and whispers, "Peace, be still," over every situation. Have you noticed something? People who walk in peace shift atmospheres. When she enters the room, the chaos doesn't change her. She changes the chaos. When others are arguing, her calm presence softens the tension. When others are doubting, her steady faith silences the fear. When others are panicking, her words bring perspective. She doesn't just carry peace, she releases it. She doesn't just receive peace, she becomes a channel of it. And that is what makes her unstoppable in a world drowning in noise. But let me give you this hook. Peace is not the fruit of control. Peace is the fruit of surrender. The more she lets go, the more peace she carries. The less she tries to fix everything, the more peace she finds. The more she trusts God with what she cannot change, the more unshakable her spirit becomes. People think she's calm because life is easy, but her peace is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of trust. Chaos will test her, but peace will prove her. Chaos will push her, but peace will plant her. Chaos will shake her, but peace will secure her. And that is why even in the wildest storm, even in the loudest battle, even in the darkest night, she carries peace that overpowers chaos. What happens when a woman stops living for the crowd and starts living for the call? What happens when she decides that applause will no longer drive her, but assignment will define her? That's when you see purpose rising higher than popularity. That's when you see destiny shining brighter than opinions. That's when you see the mark of true favor. Popularity is fragile. One day people cheer you, the next day they forget you. One moment they celebrate you, the next moment they criticize you. Popularity is like a wave, comes and it goes. But purpose is eternal. Purpose is fixed. Purpose is rooted in heaven and cannot be shaken by earth. The favored woman knows this truth. She was not created to be liked, she was created to be used. Living for popularity will drain you, but living for purpose will fulfill you. Popularity forces you to perform. Purpose allows you to be authentic. Popularity demands you chase people's approval. Purpose invites you to walk in God's approval. Popularity is about visibility. Purpose is about impact. You can be popular and empty, but you cannot be purposeful and empty at the same time. Because purpose fills you with meaning, with fire, with direction. The woman favored by God understands that her calling is greater than her comfort. She doesn't spend her life trying to fit in, she spends her life standing out. She doesn't water down her truth just to be accepted. She speaks her truth because she is appointed. She doesn't ask, will they like me? She asks, will this honor the one who sent me? That's the difference between popularity and purpose. People will always have opinions. They will say she's too bold, too quiet, too much, too little. They will try to put her in a box, label her, and define her worth. But she refuses to be confined by labels because she knows who called her. She knows that if she spends her life pleasing people, she will miss her destiny. But if she spends her life walking in her purpose, she will change lives, she will shift generations, and she will leave a mark that outlives her. Think about it when you live for popularity. Your value rises and falls with people's approval. But when you live for purpose, your value is anchored in eternity. That's why the favored woman is not afraid to walk alone. That's why she can stand when nobody claps. That's why she can keep going when nobody understands. Because her purpose was written before the foundation of the world, and she refuses to trade it for temporary applause. Let me remind you, purpose doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes purpose looks like sacrifice. Sometimes purpose looks like being misunderstood. Sometimes purpose looks like walking away from the crowd to follow a higher calling. And sometimes purpose looks like standing firm when everyone else is sitting down. But the favored woman knows this. What she gives up in popularity, she gains an eternal impact. And here's the fire. Popularity gives you followers, but purpose makes you a leader. Popularity makes you visible, but purpose makes you valuable. Popularity fades when the lights go out, but purpose burns even in the darkest places. That is why she chooses purpose. That is why she doesn't live to be seen, she lives to be sent. That is why her legacy will last long after the crowd forgets her name. What do you do when life tries to rob you of your happiness? What do you do when pain knocks at the door? When betrayal cuts deep? When circumstances don't look like the promises you've been holding on to? Most people lose their smile. Most people lose their hope. Most people lose their song. But the favored woman carries something different. She carries a joy that cannot be stolen. Happiness depends on what happens, but joy depends on what's within. Happiness rises and falls with conditions, but joy flows steady from conviction. Happiness can be taken away by loss, but joy survives the storm. Happiness shifts when people leave, but joy stays when everyone else is gone. Joy is not shallow, it is rooted deep. Joy is not fragile, it is fortified. Joy is not temporary, it is eternal. Anybody can smile when life is good, but it takes a favored woman to smile when life is breaking. Anybody can laugh when doors open, but it takes a favored woman to laugh while waiting for the breakthrough. Anybody can sing when the sun is shining, but it takes a favored woman to sing in the middle of the night. That's not ordinary, that's supernatural. That's the kind of joy that cannot be stolen. And why can't it be stolen? Because it doesn't come from circumstances, it comes from the source. Circumstances shift, but the source never does. People may walk away, but the source remains. Seasons may change, but the source is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's why her joy is unshakable. That's why her joy is untouchable. That's why her joy is unstoppable. Life has tried to take it before. Disappointments have tried to drain her. Heartbreak has tried to silence her. Loss has tried to crush her. But every time the enemy tried to take her joy, he discovered something. Her joy is not stored in fragile places. It is hidden in a God who cannot be moved. That's why she still rises. That's why she still shines. That's why she still dances even when the music stopped playing. Because her joy is not built on what the world gives, so the world cannot take it away. Think about it. Joy is not just an emotion, it's a weapon. Joy confuses the enemy. Joy frustrates the opposition. Joy silences the voice of despair. Joy is a declaration that says, I will not let life define me. I will let God define me. Joy is a choice, and the favored woman chooses it every single day. She wakes up with it. She carries it. She spreads it, and she protects it. Let me give you this truth. When she walks into the room, her joy shifts the atmosphere. Others may walk in heavy, but her joy lifts them. Others may walk in defeated, but her joy encourages them. Others may walk in silent, but her joy gives them a song again. She doesn't just keep her joy for herself, she multiplies it in others. Because joy is contagious, and a woman who refuses to let her joy be stolen becomes a light in every dark place she enters. And here's the fire. Joy doesn't deny the pain, it defeats the pain. Joy doesn't ignore reality, it declares a greater reality. Joy doesn't erase the storm, it proves you can still shine in the storm. That's why she holds on to it like treasure. That's why she guards it like gold. That's why she refuses to let the trials of life steal the one thing that makes her unbreakable. Because the favored woman doesn't just have joy, she has joy that can't be stolen. What does it mean for a woman to live in such a way that her life speaks long after her voice goes silent? What does it mean for her footsteps to leave marks that generations follow? That is the power of legacy. That is the strength of a life favored by God. The favored woman is not just living for today, she is building for tomorrow. She is not just concerned with her own journey, she is shaping the path for those who will come after her. Popularity fades, beauty fades, wealth fades, but legacy remains. Legacy is not measured by what you accumulate, but by what you pass on. Legacy is not about the trophies on your shelf. It's about the seeds you planted in the hearts of others. Legacy is not about your name being shouted for a moment. It's about your impact being remembered for a lifetime. The favored woman understands this. She is not just passing through the earth. She is leaving something behind. Some women are remembered for their style, but the favored woman is remembered for her spirit. Some are remembered for what they wore, but she is remembered for what she carried. Some are remembered for what they achieved, but she is remembered for what she gave. Her life is more than memories. It is momentum. Her story is more than inspiration. It is instruction. Her walk is more than an example. It is a roadmap. Legacy is built in the small choices. Legacy is written in the quiet sacrifices. Legacy is forged in the unseen moments when no one is watching, but heaven is recording. The way she prays for her family, the way she uplifts her community, the way she stands for truth, the way she refuses to compromise, all of it stacks brick upon brick in the foundation of her legacy. She is not just living for herself, she is building a future for those who will one day rise and say, I am stronger because she showed me how to stand. Have you noticed? A favored woman doesn't need a stage to create legacy. She doesn't need a microphone, she doesn't need the spotlight. She builds legacy in the way she nurtures, the way she encourages, the way she speaks life into the broken. She builds legacy in the way she forgives when others would hold grudges. She builds legacy in the way she chooses faith when fear would have been easier. Legacy is not always loud, but it is lasting. And let me give you this fire. Legacy is proof that your life was bigger than yourself. The favored woman knows her assignment is not just to live well, but to leave well. To leave wisdom behind. To leave courage behind. To leave faith behind. To leave light behind. She knows that her children, her friends, her community, the generations she may never meet, will walk in paths made easier because she refused to quit. She refused to bow. She refused to be silenced. Here's the truth: what she does now will echo later. The seeds she plants today will bloom in fields she may never see. The prayers she prays today will cover people she may never meet. The battles she fights today will bring freedom to those who come after her. That is legacy. That is the reward of a life favored by God. She doesn't just live for applause, she lives for impact. She doesn't just live for comfort, she lives for contribution. She doesn't just live for herself, she lives for the countless lives that will be touched because she walked this earth.